For decades, Africa, the world's second largest continent, home to 1.4 billion people, has had no permanent voice in the most powerful decision-making body of the United Nations, the Security Council. Now, after years of being sidelined, the momentum for change is growing. But will Africa finally secure the representation it has long fought for, or will global politics once again delay justice? The United Nations Security Council was established in 1944, with 5 countries, China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, granted permanent membership, complete with veto power. This arrangement reflected the world order after World War II, but it ignored entire continents. Since then, Africa has gained independence and became the reservoir of the world's future economy. Yet, it remains without a permanent seat at the table. The African Union, representing 54 nations, has been pushing for reform for years. The Ezulwini Consensus, adopted in 2005, called for 2 permanent seats for Africa, complete with veto power. The argument is simple. Africa constitutes over a quarter of UN member states and provides over 40% of UN peacekeeping forces. Yet, it has no say when it comes to making the final decision on war, peace, and global security, considering that most issues on the Council agenda are related to African countries. Recently, in February 2025, the Security Council was once again the stage for intense debate on this very issue. Representatives from across the world voiced support for Africa's demand. The Algerian representative, for instance, stressed that the current financial and security system is controlled by developed nations, calling for a fairer economic order, along with permanent seats for Africa. Sierra Leone, Somalia, and Guyana representatives called Africa the most glaring victim of the Council's outdated structure, warning that without reform, the body's legitimacy would continue to erode. They emphasized that any real reform must include 2 permanent seats with veto power for African nations. Even some Western nations have acknowledged the injustice. France's representative openly stated, "It is illogical that Africa does not feature among permanent members. That must change." Denmark echoed this, declaring that the world needs a Security Council that truly reflects modern realities. With mounting international support, the question is no longer whether Africa deserves permanent representation, but when and how they will be granted. The US has already proposed adding 2 permanent African seats but without veto power, a key sticking point for the African Union, which insists on full equality with the existing permanent 5. Yet, internal division could complicate progress. African nations must decide which countries will fill these seats, a debate that has caused tension with the African Union. Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya are often cited as front-runners, but regional competition could slow negotiations. However, even with growing support, real change requires amending the UN Charter. This means securing 129 votes in the General Assembly and approval from all 5 permanent members. While countries like France and the UK principally support reform, China and Russia remain cautious, fearing a shift in global power dynamics. The US supports African representation, but not veto power. Will these roadblocks keep Africa waiting for another decade? Africa's fight for a permanent seat is more than a diplomatic struggle. It's a battle for fairness in global governance. The world is watching, and the time for action is now. Will the UN finally reflect the world of today, or will it remain trapped in the politics of the past? Should Africa be given a permanent seat in the UN Security Council? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and salam.